Chapter 21. See this right here, kids? This is how you don't do it. Questions? Class dismissed. How's the wound? Hazel asked. I knew she meant well, but I was getting very tired of that question, and even more tired of the wound. We walked side by side out the main gates, heading for the field of Mars. Just ahead of us, Meg cartwheeled down the road, though how she did this without regurgitating the 4 hot dogs she'd swallowed, I had no idea. Oh, you know, I said in a terrible attempt to sound upbeat. All things considered, I'm okay. My old immortal self would have laughed at that. Okay? Are you joking? Over the last few months, I had drastically scaled back my expectations. At this point, okay meant still able to walk and breathe. I should have realized earlier, Hazel said. Your death aura is getting stronger by the hour. Can we not talk about my death aura? Sorry, it's just... I wish Nico were here. He might know how to fix you. I wouldn't have minded seeing Hazel's half-brother, Nico D'Angelo, son of Hades. He'd been quite valuable when we fought Nero at Camp Half-Blood. And of course his boyfriend, my son Will Solace, was an excellent healer. Yet I suspected they wouldn't be able to help me any more than Prangel had. If Will and Nico were here, there would just be 2 more people for me to worry about. 2 more loved ones watching me with concern, wondering how long until I went full-on zombie. I appreciate the sentiment, I said. But, hold on, what is Lavinia doing? About 100 yards away, Lavinia and Don the Fawn stood on a bridge across the Little Tiber, which was very much not on the way to the field of Mars, having what looked like a serious argument. Perhaps I shouldn't have brought this to Hazel's attention. Then again, if Lavinia wanted to go unnoticed, she should have chosen a different hair color. Like camouflage, for instance, and not waved her arms around so much. I don't know. Hazel's expression reminded me of a tired mother who had found her toddler trying to climb into the monkey exhibit for the 10th time. Lavinia! Lavinia looked over. She patted the air as if to say, just give me a minute, then went back to arguing with Dawn. Am I too young to get ulcers? Hazel wondered aloud. I had little occasion for humor given all that was happening, but that comment made me laugh. As we got closer to the field of Mars, I saw legionnaires breaking into cohorts, moving into different activities spread across the wasteland. One group was digging defensive trenches. Another had gathered on the shore of an artificial lake that hadn't been there yesterday, waiting to board 2 makeshift boats that looked nothing like Caligula's yachts. A third group sledded down a dirt hill on their shields. Hazel sighed. That would be my group of delinquents. If you'll excuse me, I'm off to teach them how to slay ghouls. She jogged away, leaving me alone with my cartwheeling sidekick. So where do we go? I asked Meg. Frank said we had a... special jobs? Yep. Meg pointed to the far end of the field, where the 5th cohort was waiting at a target range. You're teaching archery. I stared at her. I'm doing what now? Frank taught the morning class since he slept forever. Now it's your turn. But I can't teach as Lester, especially in my condition. Besides, Romans never rely on archery in combat. They think projectile weapons are beneath them. Gotta think in new ways if you want to beat the Emperors, Meg said. Like me. I'm weaponizing the unicorns. You're... Wait, what? Later. Meg skipped across the field toward a large riding ring, where the first cohort and a herd of unicorns were staring suspiciously at one another. I couldn't imagine how Meg planned to weaponize the nonviolent creatures, or who had given her permission to try, but I had a sudden horrible image of Romans and unicorns assaulting one another with large cheese graters. I decided to mind my own business. With a sigh, I turned toward the firing range and went to meet my new pupils. The only thing scarier than being bad at archery was discovering that I was suddenly good at it again. That may not sound like a problem, but since becoming mortal, I'd experienced a few random bursts of godly skill. Each time my powers had quickly evaporated again, leaving me more bitter and disillusioned than ever. Sure, I may have fired a quiver full of amazing shots in Tarkin's tomb. That didn't mean I could do it again. If I tried to demonstrate proper shooting techniques in front of a whole cohort and ended up hitting one of Meg's unicorns in the butt, I would die of embarrassment long before the zombie poison got me. Okay, everyone, I said. I suppose we can start. Dakota was rummaging through his water-stained quiver, trying to find an arrow that wasn't warped. Apparently he thought it was a great idea to store his archery supplies in the sauna. Thomas and another legionnaire, Marcus, were sword-fighting with their bows. The Legion's standard-bearer, Jacob, was drawing his bow with the butt of the arrow directly at eye level, which explained why his left eye was covered in a patch from the morning's lessons. He now seemed eager to blind himself completely. Come on, guys, said Lavinia. She had sneaked in late without being noticed, one of her superpowers, and took it upon herself to help me call the troops to order. Apollo might know stuff. This was how I knew I had hit rock bottom. The highest praise I could receive from a mortal was that I might know stuff. I cleared my throat. I'd faced much bigger audiences. Why was I so nervous? Oh, right. Because I was a horribly incompetent 16-year-old. So, let's talk about how to aim. My voice cracked naturally. Wide stance, full draw, then find your target with your dominant eye. Or in Jacob's case, with your one working eye. Aim along your sight pin if you have one. I don't have a sight pin, said Marcus. It's a little circle thingy right there, Lavinia showed him. I have a sight pin, Marcus corrected himself. Then you let fly, I said. Like this. I shot at the nearest target, then at the target next farthest out, then at the next, firing again and again in a kind of trance. Only after my 20th shot did I realize I'd landed all bullseyes, 2 in each target, the farthest about 200 yards away. Child's play for Apollo. For Lester, quite impossible. The Legionnaires stared at me, their mouths hanging open. We're supposed to do that? Dakota demanded. Lavinia punched my forearm. See, you guys, I told you Apollo doesn't suck that much. I had to agree with her. I felt oddly not suckish. The display of marksmanship had drained my energy. Nor did it feel like the temporary burst of godly power I'd experienced before. I was tempted to ask for another quiver to see if I could keep shooting at the same skill level, but I was afraid to press my luck. So, I faltered. I don't expect you to be that good right away. I was only demonstrating what's possible with a lot of practice. Let's give it a try, shall we? I was relieved to take the focus off myself. I organized the cohorts into a firing line and made my way down the ranks, offering advice. Despite his warped arrows, Dakota was not terrible. He actually hit the targets a few times. Jacob managed not to blind himself in the other eye. Thomas and Marcus sent most of their arrows skittering across the dirt, ricocheting off rocks and into the trenches, which elicited shouts of, "Hey, watch it!" from the ditch-digging 4th cohort. After an hour of frustration with a regular bow, Lavinia gave up and pulled out her Manu Ballista. Her first bolt knocked down the 50-yard target. Why do you insist on using that slow-loading monstrosity? I asked. If you're so ADHD, wouldn't a regular bow give you more instant satisfaction? Lavinia shrugged. Maybe, but the Manu Ballista makes a statement. Speaking of which, she leaned toward me, her expression turning serious. I need to talk to you. That doesn't sound good. No, it's not. In the distance, a horn blew. Okay, guys, Dakota called. Time to rotate activities. Good team effort. Lavinia punched me in the arm again. Later, Lester. The 5th cohort dropped their weapons and ran toward the next activity, leaving me to retrieve all their arrows. Cretins. The rest of the afternoon I stayed at the firing range, working with each cohort in turn. As the hours wore on, both the shooting and the teaching became less intimidating for me. By the time I was wrapping up work with my last group, the 1st cohort, I was convinced that my improved archery skills were here to stay. I didn't know why. I still couldn't shoot at my godly level, but I was definitely better now than the average demigod, or Olympic gold medalist. I had started to jive. I considered pulling out the Arab Dodona to brag, "See what I can do?" But I didn't want to jinx myself. Besides, knowing that I was dying of a zombie poison on the eve of a major battle took some of the thrill out of being able to shoot bullseyes again. The Romans were duly impressed. Some of them even learned a little, like how to fire an arrow without blinding yourself or killing the guy next to you. Still, I could tell they were more excited about the other activities they'd done. I overheard a lot of whispering about unicorns and Hazel's super-secret ghoul fighting techniques. Larry from the 3rd cohort had enjoyed boarding ships so much he declared that he wanted to be a pirate when he grew up. I suspected most of the Legionnaires had even enjoyed ditch-digging more than my class. It was late evening when the final horn blew, and the cohorts tromped back to camp. I was hungry and exhausted. I wondered if this was how mortal teachers felt after a full day of classes. If so, I didn't see how they managed. I hoped they were richly compensated with gold, diamonds, and rare spices. At least the cohorts seemed to be in an upbeat mood. If the praetor's goal had been to take the troops' minds off their fears and raise morale on the eve of battle, then our afternoon had been a success. If the goal had been to train the Legion to successfully repel our enemies, then I was less than hopeful. Also, all day long everyone had carefully avoided addressing the worst thing about tomorrow's attack. The Romans would have to face their former comrades, returned as zombies under Tarquin's control. I remembered how hard it had been for Lavinia to shoot down Bobby with her crossbow in the tomb. I wondered how the Legion's morale would hold up once they faced some ethical dilemma times 50 or 60. I was turning onto the Via Principalis, on my way to the mess hall, when a voice said, "Psst!" Lurking in the alley between Bombilo's cafe and the chariot repair shop were Lavinia and Dawn. The Faun was wearing an honest-to-God's trench coat over his tie-dyed t-shirt, as if that made him look inconspicuous. Lavinia wore a black cap over her pink hair. "Come here," she hissed. "But dinner. We need you." "Is this a mugging?" She marched over, grabbed my arm, and pulled me into the shadows. Don't worry, dude, Dawn told me. It's not a mugging, but, if you do have any spare change... Shut up, Dawn, said Lavinia. I'll shut up, Dawn agreed. Lester, Lavinia said, you need to come with us. Lavinia, I'm tired. I'm hungry. And I have no spare change. Can it please wait? No, because tomorrow we might all die, and this is important. We're sneaking out. Sneaking out? Yeah, Dawn said. It's when you're sneaking and you go out. Yeah, why? I demanded. You'll see. Lavinia's tone was ominous, as if she couldn't explain what my coffin looked like. I had to admire it with my own eyes. What if we get caught? Oh, Dawn perked up. I know this one. For a first offense, it's latrine duty for a month, but see, if we all die tomorrow, it won't matter. With that happy news, Lavinia and Dawn grabbed my hands and dragged me farther into the darkness.